Chapter 1. Focus starts when excuses die. Listen to this slowly. No one is coming to save you. Not today, not tomorrow, not when things get worse. That truth is heavy because it removes your favorite escape. Hope without action. You have been waiting. Waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel confident, waiting for the right time, waiting for someone to notice you. And while you wait, life keeps moving forward without asking your permission. The world does not pause for confusion. It does not care about potential. It does not reward intention. It only responds to execution. Right now, you are either building something or avoiding something. There is no third option. You tell yourself you are planning. But deep down, you know the truth. You are hesitating. Hesitation feels safe because it keeps your ego intact. As long as you do not fully commit, you never have to fully fail. But that safety is costing you your future. Look at your days honestly. You wake up and your mind is already scattered. Notifications decide your mood. Other people's lives steal your attention. Opinions replace action. Consumption replaces creation. Then you wonder why you feel stuck. You are not stuck because you lack talent. You are stuck because your focus is weak. Focus is not motivation. Focus is not excitement. Focus is choosing one direction and refusing to negotiate with distractions. Winners are not special people. They are obsessed people, obsessed with improvement, obsessed with discipline, obsessed with doing the boring work repeatedly while everyone else looks for shortcuts. They are not louder, they are quieter. They disappear. They stop explaining. They stop announcing plans. They let results speak later. You cannot build something meaningful while needing constant validation. Every time you look for approval, you give your power away. This journey requires silence, silence from noise, silence from opinions, silence from your own excuses. You will feel lonely at first. That is normal. Most people mistake loneliness for failure. It is not. It is the space where focus is born. You do not need more motivation. You need fewer distractions. Motivation comes after progress, not before it. Confidence is built through evidence. Evidence is built through repetition. Repetition is built through discipline, not feelings. You will not feel like doing the work most days. That is not a problem. That is the requirement. If you only work when you feel inspired, you will always be average. The people you admire did not wake up confident. They woke up committed. They showed up tired. They showed up unsure. They showed up when no one was watching. While others waited for clarity, they moved forward confused. While others asked for permission, they acted. While others talked, they worked. And slowly, quietly, something changed. They stopped chasing motivation. They became disciplined. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is self-respect in action. It is saying, I will do what needs to be done even when it is uncomfortable. Especially when it is uncomfortable. Your current life is the result of your current standards. If you want a different life, you need higher standards, not tomorrow, not next week. Now, stop asking, what if I fail? Ask, what if I never focus? What if years pass and nothing changes? What if you keep consuming instead of creating? What if you stay busy but never effective? That regret will hurt more than effort ever will. This is where focus begins, when excuses die, when comparison stops, when distractions lose power. When you decide that your future deserves your full attention, you do not need to be perfect. You need to be consistent, one goal, one direction, one daily promise kept. Every day you either move forward or you lie to yourself. No one is coming. And that is not scary. That is freedom. Because if no one is coming, then everything depends on you, and that means you have a chance. Focus on you. Focus on the work. Focus until winning becomes inevitable. This is where it starts. Chapter 2. See, quit the noise or bleed forever. Focus does not disappear by accident. It is stolen deliberately. Every distraction in your life exists because you allow it. Let that sink in. Your phone is not the enemy. Social media is not the enemy. People are not the enemy. Your lack of boundaries is the enemy. You want to win, but you live like someone who has time to waste. You say your goals matter, but your actions say entertainment matters more. That contradiction is why you feel frustrated. You cannot build a serious future with casual discipline. Every day the world fights for your attention. Notifications pull you. Opinions flood you. Trends distract you. Drama excites you, and quietly your focus dies. Not all at once, bit by bit. You do not lose your life in one big mistake. You lose it through daily distractions you refuse to confront. Here is the uncomfortable truth. If something is stealing your focus, it is stealing your future. There is no such thing as harmless distraction when you are trying to build something meaningful. Most people are not lazy. They are distracted, busy but ineffective. Moving but not progressing, consuming but not creating. They mistake activity for achievement. Scrolling feels like doing something. Talking about goals feels productive. Planning endlessly feels safe. But none of it moves you forward. Focus requires subtraction. You cannot add greatness on top of chaos. You have to remove what does not belong. This is where people resist. They want success without sacrifice. They want growth without discomfort. They want focus without saying no. That is not how reality works. Every yes costs you something. Every yes to distraction is a no to progress. You have to decide what deserves your attention and what does not. Not emotionally, logically. Look at your daily routine honestly. How many hours go into things that do not build your future? How many conversations lead nowhere? How many habits exist only because they are familiar? Familiar does not mean useful. Comfort is expensive. It costs ambition. It costs growth. It costs momentum. You do not need to destroy your life to focus. You need to simplify it. Fewer inputs. Clear priorities. Non-negotiable work time. Focus is not about intensity. It is about protection. Protecting your time. Protecting your energy. Protecting your mental space. If you cannot protect your focus, you will always be available for things that do not matter. Winners are ruthless with their attention. Not angry. Not dramatic. Ruthless. They do not explain their boundaries. They enforce them. They do not argue with distractions. They remove them. They understand something most people never learn. You cannot multitask your way to excellence. Every time you split your attention, you dilute your output. Deep work creates results. Shallow effort creates noise, and noise feels productive until years pass and nothing changes. This is where discipline replaces motivation. You will not feel excited about cutting distractions. You will feel bored. You will feel restless. You will feel uncomfortable. Good. That discomfort is withdrawal. You are detoxing from cheap stimulation. Your brain has been trained to seek novelty, quick rewards, instant feedback. Focus retrains your brain to tolerate silence. Silence is where clarity lives. When you remove noise, you start hearing your own thoughts again. That scares people, because silence exposes truth. It shows you where you are weak, where you have been lying to yourself. Where effort is missing, most people run from silence. They fill every moment with sound. Strong people sit in it and work anyway. You do not need to quit everything, you need to control access. Your time is not public property, your energy is not unlimited. If someone does not contribute to your growth or peace, they should not have unlimited access to you. This will offend people. Let it. Your future is more important than their comfort. You are not responsible for maintaining everyone else's expectations. You are responsible for your own potential. Understand this clearly. Focus is a lifestyle, not a phase. You do not focus for a week. You build systems that make distraction difficult. You schedule your work. You plan your days. You decide in advance what matters. Decision fatigue kills focus. Clarity preserves it. When you know what you are supposed to do, distractions lose power. Unclear goals create wandering minds. That is why you must define your mission. Not a fantasy, not a vague dream. A specific direction. What skill are you building? What outcome are you chasing? What standard are you refusing to fall below? If you cannot answer that, focus will always escape you, because focus follows meaning. You cannot give full attention to something you do not respect. This chapter is not about becoming extreme. It is about becoming intentional. Every great achievement required someone to say no repeatedly. No to comfort, no to distraction, no to shortcuts, until yes became inevitable. Your life will not change because you listened to this. It will change when you act differently after it ends. Cut the noise, not someday. Today, protect your focus like your life depends on it. Because it does. Chapter 3. Discipline. When you feel nothing, there will be days when motivation disappears completely. This is the moment most people silently quit without announcing it to anyone. They still talk about goals, they still pretend they are trying, but inside they have already accepted average as their ceiling. This is where discipline becomes the difference between those who win and those who spend their lives explaining why they did not. Discipline is not intensity, and it is not emotion. Discipline is the ability to execute when your mind is empty and your body resists. It is choosing action when there is no emotional reward attached to it. You have been taught to wait for motivation, as if motivation is some magical force that arrives first and then gives you permission to work. That belief is wrong and dangerous. Motivation follows action, not the other way around. Action creates momentum, and momentum creates motivation. If you sit and wait to feel ready, you will stay exactly where you are. The truth is, you will often feel bored, tired, irritated, or numb. Those feelings are not signals to stop. They are signals that you are doing real work. Most people confuse discomfort with danger. They think something is wrong because it feels hard. Nothing is wrong. Growth is hard by design. Your brain resists effort because effort requires energy, and your brain prefers comfort. Discipline is training yourself to move forward even while your brain complains. You do not negotiate with that voice. You acknowledge it and work anyway. There will be days when you hate the process, days when the work feels meaningless, days when progress is invisible. Those are the days that build winners. Anyone can work when progress is obvious. Anyone can work when praise is available. Very few can work when there is no feedback and no recognition. That ability separates professionals from amateurs. Discipline is not about pushing harder, it is about showing up consistently. Small actions done daily beat occasional bursts of extreme effort. You do not need to destroy yourself with overwork. You need to be reliable to your own standards. When you promise yourself you will do something and you follow through, you build trust with yourself. When you break those promises, you lose self-respect. Confidence is not built through affirmations. It is built through kept promises. Your emotions will lie to you. They will tell you to rest when you are not tired. They will tell you to stop when you are just uncomfortable. They will convince you that tomorrow is a better time. Discipline ignores emotional arguments and focuses on long-term outcomes. It understands that feelings change but results compound. Most people stop not because they cannot continue, but because they do not see immediate results. They underestimate how long it takes to build anything worthwhile. Discipline is staying consistent long enough for results to appear. It is trusting the process even when evidence is missing. That trust is not blind. It is earned through repetition. You will not always feel proud of yourself. Sometimes discipline feels mechanical and cold. That is fine. This is not about feeling good. This is about becoming dangerous with your consistency. When you remove emotion from execution, you become unstoppable. You do the work whether you are happy or not. You do the work whether you are inspired or not. You do the work because that is who you decided to be. There is a point where discipline becomes identity. You no longer debate whether to work. You simply work. You no longer seek motivation. You rely on routine. Routine removes decision-making, and decision-making drains energy. When your actions are automatic, your focus becomes sharper and your progress accelerates. People around you will not understand this phase. They will think you are cold or obsessed. Let them. Obsession is temporary. Regret lasts forever. You are not required to explain your discipline to anyone. Results will explain it later. Understand this clearly. Discipline is freedom. It frees you from emotional dependency. It frees you from excuses. It frees you from waiting. When you can act without motivation, you control your future. When you rely on feelings, your future controls you. This chapter is not meant to excite you. It is meant to prepare you, because the path ahead is long and motivation will not survive the distance. Discipline will. And when discipline becomes your default state, winning stops being a question of if and becomes a matter of when. Chapter 4. Become the person who does not fail. At some point you have to stop trying to change your life and start changing who you are, because results do not come from wishes or effort alone. They come from identity, and identity dictates behavior whether you are aware of it or not. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your standards. And most people never win, not because they lack desire, but because their identity is built around comfort, excuses, and emotional decision-making. They see themselves as someone who tries, rather than someone who executes. And that subtle difference ruins everything, because when pressure comes, the mind defaults to identity, not ambition. If you still see yourself as someone who needs motivation, you will always search for it. If you see yourself as someone who works regardless of mood, then work becomes automatic. Identity removes debate, and debate is where progress dies. The moment you argue with yourself, you are already losing, because discipline does not negotiate. It acts. Most people exhaust themselves mentally before they even begin the work, and then blame fatigue when the real problem is internal conflict. You cannot move forward while fighting yourself. The reason this matters is because challenges do not ask how motivated you are. They ask who you are when things stop going your way, when effort is not rewarded immediately, when no one is watching, when boredom sets in, when progress slows. Identity answers those questions instantly. If you identify as someone who finishes what they start, then quitting does not feel like an option. It feels unnatural and uncomfortable. And that is power, because the strongest habits are the ones that feel wrong to break. You have to understand that winning is not a single moment. It is a long series of small decisions made consistently under pressure. And the person you are right now makes those decisions based on old patterns you learned from your environment, from your past failures, from people who did not know better. If you want a different outcome, you need a different internal rule set, and rule sets change only when identity changes, not when motivation spikes. This shift is uncomfortable because it requires killing old stories you tell yourself. Stories like, "I am not ready yet. I work better under pressure. I will start when things settle down." Those stories feel harmless, but they shape behavior. And behavior shapes results. You cannot keep an identity built on delay and expect a future built on dominance. The math does not work. Becoming the person who does not fail does not mean you never make mistakes. It means you do not quit on yourself. Failure is information. Quitting is identity. The strongest people fail often, but they never detach effort from outcome. They learn, adjust, and continue without drama. They do not collapse emotionally when things go wrong because their self-worth is not tied to temporary results. It is tied to consistency. You build this identity through evidence, not imagination. Every time you do the work when you do not feel like it, you add proof. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you reinforce who you are. Every time you stop yourself from quitting, you reshape your internal standard. And slowly, something changes. The work stops feeling optional. It starts feeling normal. And that is the moment you become dangerous, because normal behaviors repeated over time create extraordinary outcomes. Most people wait for confidence before acting. Confident people act first and let confidence catch up. They understand that confidence is not a requirement, it is a byproduct. And by the time others are still preparing, they are already ahead, because they moved when movement felt uncomfortable. Identity-based action removes hesitation, and hesitation is the tax most people pay on every decision. There will be moments when this identity isolates you. People will not relate to your discipline. They will question your intensity. They will label you obsessed or extreme. That is the cost of becoming uncommon, and you must accept that. Because fitting in and standing out require opposite behaviors. You cannot chase approval and dominance at the same time. One always cancels the other. You are not becoming someone new. You are removing what never belonged: the laziness, the avoidance, the emotional dependence, the excuses. Those are not personality traits. They are habits learned through repetition, and habits can be replaced. The brain adapts to what you repeatedly do, not what you intend to do. And once the brain adapts, resistance fades and execution becomes smoother. This chapter is not about hype. It is about permanence. Because temporary motivation creates temporary effort, but identity creates permanence. When you decide who you are and act accordingly, even on bad days, even on slow days, even on days where nothing feels rewarding, you build a foundation that cannot collapse easily. And that is how winning stops being fragile and starts becoming inevitable. You are not behind. You are uncommitted to an identity shift. Once that shift happens, progress accelerates without drama. You stop asking how long it will take and start asking what needs to be done today. That mindset is the dividing line between those who talk about success and those who live inside it. This is where the real work begins. Not in your schedule, but in your self-definition. Decide who you are and then behave like it until there is no other option left. Chapter 5. Endure when no one sees. The hardest part of winning is not the work itself. It is enduring when no one notices, when no one applauds, when there is no feedback and the world seems silent. Because most people quit the moment the audience disappears. Most people are addicted to applause and recognition. And once it vanishes, they stop moving, they stop creating. They stop believing in themselves because they mistook attention for validation. The moment you accept that effort is not a performance, you gain freedom. Because effort becomes personal and internal and unstoppable. When you work because it matters to your future and not because someone else is watching, you operate differently. You exist on a level above noise, and that level is lonely but necessary. And everyone who has ever achieved greatness has spent countless hours in this invisible grind. Endurance is born in isolation. Because only when distractions are removed and external validation is absent do you confront your true limitations, your weaknesses, your habits, and your character flaws. And most people never endure because they cannot face themselves. They fill every quiet moment with chatter, entertainment, or excuses to avoid the truth. They refuse to measure themselves honestly. They refuse to see that their actions do not match their words. And until you face that emptiness, you cannot grow. You will feel invisible and unimportant for long stretches. And that is the training ground for anyone who wants to rise above average. You must learn to enjoy the work itself. Not the result, not the approval, not the outcome, but the process itself. And that does not mean pretending it is fun. It means committing to it when it feels uncomfortable. It means accepting that boredom and frustration are part of progress. It means embracing repetition as the vehicle of transformation. Every time you do what is hard, what is tedious, what is invisible, you build endurance. And that endurance compounds silently over months and years. It is invisible to others, but it is not invisible to your future self who will benefit from it when momentum finally hits. The world will not slow down to recognize your effort. It will not pause to accommodate your discomfort. It will not provide shortcuts for those who are willing to sacrifice. Everything you must endure in silence and with patience, because life rewards consistency, not dramatics. It rewards stubborn execution, not waiting for inspiration or luck or perfect timing. The people who succeed are the ones who do what must be done long before they feel like doing it, long before anyone notices, long before anything seems to change. Because consistency is the only mechanism that converts small actions into extraordinary results. Expect resistance from yourself. Because the human mind is wired for comfort, it will whisper lies every day. It will tell you to stop, to wait, to take the easy route, to follow the crowd. And most people listen and surrender. That is why the few who endure become dangerous. They have trained their internal dialogue to obey their higher standards rather than their temporary feelings. They have practiced pushing past fatigue, boredom, irritation, distraction, discomfort, and uncertainty until effort becomes reflexive and quitting becomes foreign. Their identity is wired for persistence, and persistence always wins over sporadic bursts of energy or fleeting excitement. Endurance is built through repetition and measured over time. You do not need to see results immediately to keep moving. You only need to trust the compounding effect of relentless action, results arrive eventually. And when they do, they arrive with force, because effort stacked in silence accelerates exponentially. Small decisions made consistently create momentum that cannot be stopped. It cannot be imitated. It cannot be bought. It must be earned. And the longer you endure without notice, the stronger that force becomes. And when recognition finally comes, it will feel inevitable, not surprising. Because you already built the foundation in solitude. During this process, you will feel unappreciated, frustrated, anxious, lonely, doubtful, angry, bored, exhausted, discouraged, and afraid, all at the same time. And those emotions will test you repeatedly. They will demand surrender. They will attempt to trick you into abandoning the path, because the human brain is designed to avoid discomfort. But you must see these feelings for what they are, temporary signals, not permanent barriers. Every time you recognize them and continue anyway, you increase your capacity to endure, and that capacity becomes your advantage. Because almost no one else is willing to bear that load. Almost no one else can resist the pull of easy gratification. Almost no one else can maintain focus when outcomes are invisible. But you can if you train yourself relentlessly. This is where mental toughness is forged, because the mind must learn that progress is not always visible. That validation is not always present. That feedback is not always immediate. That life is indifferent to effort, and yet you will continue the work anyway. That is the essence of endurance. That is the essence of true power. And that is the distinction between those who fail quietly and those who rise steadily until no one can stop them. You will no longer rely on applause or attention. You will rely on internal standards, and those standards will become unbreakable. Because they are the foundation of your identity, and identity is stronger than circumstance. Every time you endure, you add invisible weight to your future self. You store resilience. You store focus. You store strength. And those reserves will pay dividends when the world finally challenges you in ways that cannot be avoided. When competition arrives. When pressure intensifies. When the stakes are real. And only those who have built endurance in isolation are prepared to respond without hesitation, without fear, without collapse. You are cultivating a muscle few develop but all require to succeed. It is your secret weapon. It is your advantage. It is the difference between ordinary and extraordinary. Endure because everything else is temporary. Motivation because everything else is external. Approval because everything else is unreliable. You will not control luck, opportunity, timing, the actions of others, or the external world. But you can control your effort, your presence, your consistency, your refusal to quit when it is uncomfortable. And that control is your power. The longer you endure silently, the more unstoppable you become. And the more inevitable your success becomes. Because when you have trained yourself to persist without recognition, to continue without reward, to act without validation, you have removed the only barriers that could ever stop you. There will be long stretches where progress feels invisible, where results seem absent, where no one notices, where the world seems indifferent. But those moments are your training ground. Those moments are your proving ground. Those moments are your advantage if you refuse to quit. If you continue. If you act as though effort itself is the only currency that matters. Because in reality, it is. You are preparing for the moment when results arrive. And when they do, the world will have no choice but to recognize the power of quiet, relentless endurance. Chapter 6. Master your craft until you dominate. Most people never reach their potential because they mistake activity for mastery. They confuse busy work with skill. They confuse repetition without purpose with growth. They talk about improvement, but they never commit to the deep work that turns raw ability into unstoppable execution. Mastery is not a moment, it is a process. It is a long grind that stretches over months and years. It is the accumulation of hours spent deliberately refining your craft, practicing when it is dull, repeating when it is uncomfortable, and refining when no one notices. The difference between amateurs and masters is that masters understand that consistency compounds, and consistency requires obsession, not casual interest. Casual interest produces casual results, and casual results cannot compete with those who decide to dominate. You cannot outsource mastery. You cannot buy it. You cannot hope for it to arrive by chance. Mastery is earned in silence, in repetition, in discomfort, in the lonely hours where no one is watching you push yourself beyond your previous limits again and again. You will feel exhausted, frustrated, doubtful, bored, distracted, tempted to quit. Those are the signals that you are in the right place, that you are growing, that you are expanding your capability, because growth is always uncomfortable and skill is forged under pressure. That is why most people never reach it. They avoid discomfort. They chase excitement. They measure themselves by applause rather than capability. They seek shortcuts and instant gratification instead of putting in the work that creates real leverage in life. Focus is the weapon you will wield to master your craft, and focus is fragile. It is stolen constantly by distraction, by noise, by other people's opinions, by your own mind's need for novelty and entertainment. You will need to protect it ruthlessly. You will need to schedule your time in advance, guard your mental space, eliminate distractions, eliminate unnecessary obligations, and train yourself to execute even when you do not feel like it. Because mastery is not a feeling. It is a habit. It is a default behavior. It is a standard you refuse to compromise. It is what you do when you are tired, bored, uncertain, uninspired. It is what separates those who talk about greatness from those who actually achieve it. Deliberate practice is the core of mastery, and it is brutal. It is not repetition for the sake of repetition. It is repetition with feedback. It is repetition with refinement. It is repetition with awareness. It is identifying weaknesses and attacking them ruthlessly. It is turning discomfort into growth. It is becoming obsessed with eliminating errors until excellence becomes automatic. It is long hours of pushing your own limits without relying on motivation, without waiting for inspiration, without seeking approval. It is the quiet accumulation of effort that eventually overwhelms the competition. You will need to embrace the grind for years, because mastery is not instant. It is not linear. It is not predictable. It is a slow climb punctuated by plateaus, setbacks, failures, and moments where you feel invisible. But those moments are where real skill is formed. They are the periods when most people quit. And when you persist, you gain an advantage that is invisible to others, yet unbreakable. When results finally arrive, the world will see only the surface, the recognition, the talent, the ability. But you will know that it was built in those invisible hours, in those long stretches of repetition, in those moments where nothing was happening except you and your commitment to excellence. You cannot become a master if you are distracted by what others are doing. You cannot become a master if you are obsessed with outcomes. You cannot become a master if you chase approval or short-term excitement. You must be patient with the process, ruthless with your time, obsessive with your attention, and relentless with your effort. You must learn to find satisfaction in execution itself, not in applause or recognition or results. You must embrace monotony, repetition, frustration, and invisible work. Because mastery is created where excitement is absent, where comfort is denied, and where persistence meets intelligence. Every expert was once a beginner. Every genius was once clumsy. Every champion was once incompetent. The difference is that they did not stop. They did not negotiate with their discomfort. They did not allow distraction to steal their focus. They did not quit when the world was silent, when results were delayed, when failure was constant. They kept showing up. They kept practicing. They kept refining. They kept acting with discipline. They converted repetition into skill and skill into dominance. And that is why the gap between ordinary and extraordinary is rarely talent. It is dedication. It is obsession. It is the decision to outwork everyone else without apology, without drama, without expectation, except the expectation that mastery requires everything you are willing to give. Your craft will demand more than energy. It will demand your mind, your patience, your long-term vision, your tolerance for repetition, your willingness to suffer boredom, your capacity to push past frustration, your refusal to compromise your standards, and your commitment to show up every day no matter how you feel, no matter what the world says, no matter how invisible your work appears. It is the daily investment that compounds into the unstoppable ability to act decisively with precision under pressure. That ability will make you untouchable in your field, because no one else has endured what you endured. No one else has put in what you put in. No one else has faced themselves as relentlessly as you have. Skill mastery is not glamorous. It is not exciting. It is not entertaining. It is quiet, painful, relentless, invisible work repeated until it becomes automatic. Repeated until it becomes identity. Repeated until it dominates all areas of your execution. It is not measured in praise. It is measured in competence, in reliability, in speed, in precision, in the ability to perform under pressure. It is the difference between someone who can survive and someone who can thrive. It is the difference between someone who dreams and someone who produces. It is the foundation of true power and influence, because nothing can replace competence and nothing can substitute for expertise. You will face impatience. You will face doubt from others and yourself. You will feel frustrated when progress is slow, when failures are frequent, when recognition is absent. But those are not reasons to stop. Those are reasons to focus harder, because every hour you endure, every hour you practice, every hour you refine, every hour you execute when no one notices, adds invisible weight to your future success. You are building a reservoir of ability, resilience, and reputation that no shortcut can replicate, that no opinion can diminish, that no failure can erase, because it is yours. It is earned, and it is irreversible. Once you commit fully to mastery, you transform the playing field, you shift the rules. Because you are capable of what others are not, you are willing to endure what others refuse. And that is how dominance is created. Mastery is relentless. It is patient. It is boring. It is uncomfortable. It is repetitive. It is invisible. It is internal. It is quiet. It is unavoidable. It is inevitable for those who refuse to quit. It is the path where only obsession survives. It is the crucible that separates the strong from the weak, and it is the engine that will carry you past luck, timing, opportunity, and the distractions of the world into a life of unstoppable execution. Because skill repeated without compromise builds a force that cannot be ignored, that cannot be matched, that cannot be replaced. And that force is you. Chapter 7. Turn obsession into unstoppable. Momentum obsession is not a phase. It is not a spark. It is not a fleeting feeling. It is the engine that drives extraordinary achievement. And the moment you decide to become obsessed, you enter a realm most people will never understand. Because obsession demands everything. It asks for your attention, your focus, your energy, your patience, your willingness to endure boredom and frustration, your refusal to compromise your standards, and your ability to work when there is no applause, when there is no recognition, when there is no immediate reward. Most people confuse obsession with passion. They think obsession is excitement, but it is not. Obsession is relentless consistency. It is deep engagement with your craft. It is refusing to allow distraction to dilute your effort. It is acting with intensity long after the world has stopped noticing. And that is why it is so rare and so powerful. You cannot control the world. The world will not bend to your will. The world will not hand you success on a silver plate, but you can control your obsession. And when you focus that obsession on mastery and execution, it becomes unstoppable. It becomes a force that moves through resistance, that ignores criticism, that crushes mediocrity, that transforms potential into reality. You will notice a difference when you are obsessed. Your energy becomes sharper, your decisions faster, your discipline automatic, your focus unbreakable, because obsession transforms the way you see your work. It removes excuses. It eliminates hesitation. It converts discomfort into fuel. It turns setbacks into lessons. And it converts failure into temporary data points rather than permanent outcomes. Most people never reach their potential because they are casual about everything they do. They enter the arena half-heartedly. They pursue goals with weak intention. They allow distractions to dictate their schedule. They wait for inspiration and motivation as if those are requirements rather than byproducts. While they wait, life passes by quietly, relentlessly. And results accumulate for those who decided to act consistently without depending on feelings, without negotiating with resistance, without compromising their standards. Obsession is the mechanism that converts small, disciplined actions repeated over months and years into unstoppable momentum. Because momentum is not luck. It is the natural outcome of relentless, focused effort. To turn obsession into momentum, you must develop systems. You must create routines. You must protect your attention. You must design your environment to minimize friction. You must enforce boundaries. You must measure your progress objectively. You must confront your weaknesses without apology, without emotion, without delay. You must learn to act decisively in the absence of clarity, in the absence of recognition, in the absence of motivation. Because momentum is generated not by bursts of effort, but by consistent forward motion sustained over long stretches when energy is low, when results are invisible, when the world is indifferent. And that is exactly when most people quit, and exactly when momentum begins for those who persist. Obsession is uncomfortable because it is demanding. It is tiring. It is isolating. It removes easy pleasures. It rejects distractions. It forces you to confront yourself. It exposes weaknesses. It demands accountability. It asks for sacrifice. It does not negotiate with comfort. It does not tolerate excuses. It does not reward procrastination. It only rewards consistent execution. And over time, That execution compounds. It accelerates. It amplifies. It creates an unstoppable force in your life that carries you past competition, past challenges, past doubt, past fear, and past everything that holds ordinary people back. You will be tested relentlessly. Your body will resist. Your mind will resist. The world will resist. Your friends, your family, your colleagues, your environment will resist. Your obsession will be challenged constantly. And that is precisely why it works. Because every time you resist resistance, every time you choose action over inaction, every time you ignore distraction, every time you execute when it is difficult, you strengthen the force that drives you. You reinforce the habit that sustains you. You build the identity that cannot be shaken. And when momentum finally emerges, it is not fragile. It is unbreakable. It is inevitable. It is the natural product of relentless obsession executed consistently over time. Obsession is not glamorous. It is not visible. It is not recognized while it is happening. Most people will think you are extreme, obsessed, irrationally dedicated, out of balance, out of control. But that perception is irrelevant, because they do not understand the mechanics of results. They do not understand that greatness is built silently, invisibly, repetitively, day after day. That progress is accumulated in hours no one sees. That skill is refined in moments no one notices. That resilience is forged in discomfort. And the power of momentum is produced in isolation and action repeated relentlessly. And that is the exact advantage you are creating while the world waits for someone else to feel ready, to act, to commit, to discipline. Once momentum begins, it is unstoppable, because the force of past consistent action carries you forward. It reduces resistance. It amplifies efficiency. It increases focus. It strengthens confidence. It forces opportunity to align because people respond to results. And results accumulate faster when you have trained yourself to act regardless of feelings, regardless of recognition, regardless of external validation. The more obsessed you are, the faster momentum grows. The more automatic execution becomes. The less anyone else can stop you. And that is why obsession is not a hobby. It is the weapon of dominance, the engine of extraordinary achievement, and the pathway from mediocrity to greatness. Your obsession must be intentional. It must be focused. It must be aligned with your goals. It cannot be scattered. It cannot be half-hearted. It cannot be distracted. It must be singular in purpose, relentless in execution, uncompromising in standard. It must consume your attention and direct your energy in a controlled, disciplined manner. Otherwise, it dissipates. It fades. It produces nothing. It becomes chaos rather than force. And that is why the most dangerous people are not those who are talented or lucky. They are those who are obsessed. They are those who have taken control of their attention and actions to the point where momentum is inevitable. Because every day that passes, they are executing while others delay. Every week, they are building while others consume. Every month, they are compounding while others wait. And in that compounding lies power. Obsession and momentum combined create unstoppable execution. You act faster. You see patterns others miss. You respond when others hesitate. You endure when others quit. You advance when others freeze. You dominate when others drift. And nothing else can replace that. It cannot be bought. It cannot be imitated. It cannot be inherited. It must be built slowly through deliberate action, through constant focus, through unrelenting discipline, through willingness to persist when the world does not notice. And that is exactly what separates those who achieve greatness from those who dream about it. It amplifies every action. It multiplies every effort. It converts ordinary work into extraordinary results. And the difference between someone who works hard and someone who dominates their field is not raw effort. It is leverage applied consistently to the force they have built. The moment you combine relentless execution with strategic focus, with deliberate repetition, you create compounding results that grow faster than effort alone could ever produce. Most people work in isolation of leverage. They toil day after day without considering how to amplify their actions, how to maximize their focus, how to direct energy toward tasks that have disproportionate impact. And that is why so many people remain average despite consistent effort, while those who understand leverage accelerate past them without competition. Because momentum, when combined with leverage, is exponential. Leverage requires ruthless prioritization. It requires identifying the few tasks that actually move the needle and committing to them fully. It requires eliminating everything that does not directly contribute to your objectives. It requires saying no to distractions, no to weak social interactions, no to entertainment that numbs your mind, no to obligations that dilute your energy, no to actions that consume time without generating results. It is not easy because most people are addicted to activity. They confuse busyness with progress. They confuse noise with work. They confuse doing something with doing the right thing. But leverage forces clarity because every action has opportunity cost. Every hour spent poorly is a lost advantage. Momentum can only be amplified when effort is directed strategically and consistently. Discipline fuels leverage because without the ability to act relentlessly, without feeling motivated, without needing validation, without caring about temporary comfort, you cannot sustain the execution required for compounding results. Leverage requires volume. It requires precision. It requires repetition. It requires hours and hours of action performed consistently over long stretches, and only those who have mastered discipline can maintain that pace. The rest will collapse under the weight of discomfort, under the monotony, under the boredom, under the slow progression, under the lack of recognition. And that is why discipline is not optional. It is the foundation of exponential achievement. Exponential results do not appear suddenly. They appear after invisible hours of work, repeated consistently. They appear when momentum is maintained over months and years. When your actions accumulate like capital invested wisely. When your focus is protected. When your craft is refined. When you resist distraction. When you embrace discomfort. And when you maintain an identity of execution. They appear when all the small invisible decisions align with your long-term objective, when you act in silence, when the world does not notice, and when you refuse to quit because quitting is the only thing that stops compounding growth. The longer you endure, the more your actions accumulate, the more leverage grows, and the more unstoppable your trajectory becomes. To create leverage, you must also master timing, understanding that not all effort is equal at all times. Some actions compound faster than others. Some skills open doors faster than others. Some relationships accelerate results more than others. Knowing what to prioritize, when to act, when to pause, when to invest time, energy, and attention strategically allows you to multiply the impact of every decision. Leverage is not random, it is deliberate. It is calculated, it is intentional. It is aligned with your long-term vision, and it is fueled by the momentum you have already built through relentless discipline. The more momentum you have, the more leverage you can apply, and the faster results grow. Obsession, discipline, momentum, leverage. These forces, when combined, create exponential growth. They make effort unavoidable. They make execution inevitable. They make success a natural consequence of consistent action. The person who applies these principles becomes a force of nature, because every day they act while others hesitate. Every week they refine while others rest. Every month they accumulate advantage while others drift. The compound effect of those actions over time creates results that are disproportionate relative to effort. The extraordinary always looks effortless to those who did not endure the grind, who did not maintain focus, who did not leverage momentum. You must understand that exponential results require patience. Patience to maintain momentum even when progress is invisible. Patience to execute leverage even when outcomes are delayed. Patience to stay disciplined when recognition is absent. Patience to resist temptation when distraction is everywhere. Patience to persist when the world seems indifferent. Patience to keep compounding action into results, even when fear, doubt, boredom, and fatigue dominate every part of your mind and body. These periods of patience are where the foundation of unstoppable growth is cemented. Because consistency combined with leverage over time produces results that accelerate and eventually become undeniable. The beauty of momentum leveraged strategically is that it eventually feeds itself. The more consistent your action, the stronger your momentum, the greater the leverage you can apply, the faster your results compound, and the larger your advantage becomes. This creates a positive feedback loop that grows exponentially with every day of focused effort, every hour of deliberate practice, every moment of disciplined execution. Eventually, the world cannot ignore your results, because the combination of momentum and leverage produces an output that is visible, undeniable, replicable, and unstoppable. Your identity must match this level of commitment, because exponential growth demands an internal standard that cannot be compromised. It requires the person you are to act as if outcomes are inevitable, to maintain discipline when motivation dies, to apply leverage consistently, to protect momentum ruthlessly, and to endure isolation, monotony, repetition, and discomfort without surrender. It requires obsession not as a temporary state, but as a default mode. It requires focus as a constant companion. It requires execution as a habit. It requires patience as a shield. It requires relentless action as a tool. It requires understanding that exponential results are a consequence of identity applied to disciplined leverage. Most people fail because they underestimate the power of compounding action. They overestimate luck. They rely on inconsistent effort. They fail to protect their momentum. They scatter their focus. They waste energy on insignificant tasks. They chase validation rather than results. They quit too early. They surrender to discomfort and distraction, and as a result, they experience linear growth at best. While those who master discipline, momentum, and leverage experience exponential growth, they create results that dwarf their competition. They dominate fields that others thought unreachable. They turn effort into unstoppable influence and action into inevitable success. To turn momentum into unstoppable results, you must focus your obsession relentlessly. You must refine your craft consistently. You must protect your attention ruthlessly. You must apply leverage strategically. You must act decisively without hesitation. You must endure invisibility, monotony, frustration, discomfort, doubt, and fear without quitting. You must persist when nothing seems to change, when no one recognizes your effort, when results are invisible. You must continue because that continuation is the engine that powers exponential results. It is the vehicle through which momentum compounds and leverage multiplies until the world cannot deny the force you have built. Chapter 9. Turn Unstoppable. Execution into Legacy. Execution alone is powerful, but execution sustained over years without compromise creates legacy. Because legacy is not built from single moments. It is built from decades of relentless action, repeated invisibly, consistently, strategically, obsessively, until the results become undeniable and the world can no longer ignore the force you have built. Most people never think about legacy. They chase temporary rewards, applause, recognition, status, or attention. And the moment those things disappear, they quit. They lose focus. They stop executing. They abandon the very actions that could have produced enduring impact. While you are reading this chapter, you must decide that you will not be like them, that you will operate beyond temporary validation, beyond comfort, beyond approval. You will commit to execution, not for today, not for tomorrow, but for the years and decades that will define what you leave behind. Unstoppable execution is meaningless without direction. It requires a clear vision, a defined mission, a non-negotiable standard, and an internal identity that cannot be shaken, because the world will test you relentlessly. It will challenge you with setbacks, failures, criticism, doubt, isolation, monotony, and resistance. And only those who are prepared to act regardless of circumstances will endure long enough to create a lasting impact. You must understand that invincibility in your field is not physical, it is operational. It is the consistent ability to act decisively with precision under pressure over long periods. It is the accumulation of skills, knowledge, experience, relationships, momentum, discipline, and leverage into an unbreakable force that defines your presence and influence. Most people quit long before mastery or momentum reaches critical mass because they mistake temporary discomfort for permanent limitation. They see effort as punishment. They see monotony as meaningless. They see invisibility as failure. And that is why they never leave a mark. They never dominate their field. They never create results that endure. Your job is to embrace the invisible work, to embrace the monotony, to embrace the discomfort, to embrace the isolation. Because every hour spent executing when no one is watching, every repetition repeated without pause, every disciplined action taken in silence is building invincibility. It is compounding influence. It is creating momentum that others cannot replicate. It is establishing a foundation that will carry you past competition, challenges, timing, and fortune into a level of performance and impact that cannot be questioned. Legacy is the natural outcome of unstoppable execution, sustained over long periods. Because every time you refuse to quit, every time you act when others hesitate, every time you prioritize results over feelings, every time you apply leverage to momentum, you extend your reach into the future. You amplify your influence. You create outcomes that ripple beyond your immediate effort, because the compound effect of persistent execution is exponential. It grows silently. It grows invisibly. It grows until it touches everything around you, and eventually it becomes undeniable. No one can deny results. No one can dispute the standard you have set. No one can ignore the force you have become. To achieve this level of invincibility, you must be obsessed with improvement, obsessed with refinement, obsessed with learning, obsessed with action, obsessed with discipline, obsessed with outcomes. You cannot allow distractions to dilute your focus. You cannot allow others' opinions to compromise your standards. You cannot allow excuses to weaken your execution. You must operate as if surrender is impossible, because once your identity is wired to relentless execution, once your habits are automatic, once momentum compounds, once leverage is applied consistently, then your actions become unstoppable. Your presence in your field becomes invincible, and your influence becomes permanent. You will face fatigue, doubt, and frustration constantly. The human brain will fight progress. The world will resist your advancement, and the pressure will intensify the higher you climb. The harder the environment will push back, yet every time you persist, you reinforce your invincibility. Every time you refuse to quit, you strengthen your internal authority. Every time you act decisively, you expand your influence. And every time momentum compounds with leverage, you move closer to a level where success is no longer dependent on luck, opportunity, or external validation. It becomes inevitable because you have created conditions that cannot fail. You have become a force no one can stop because your execution is unstoppable and your identity is unshakable. Legacy is not about recognition. It is about permanence. It is not about applause. It is about results. It is not about attention. It is about influence. It is not about being remembered temporarily. It is about creating systems, standards, habits, skills, and impact that outlive temporary trends, that endure long after you are gone, that continue to shape outcomes, inspire action, and influence others long after individual effort ceases. That is why invincibility and legacy are intertwined. They are the natural result of relentless execution applied consistently over long stretches with obsession, discipline, momentum, and leverage operating together as a single unstoppable engine. Your competitors, your peers, your environment, and even time itself will challenge you every step of the way. The difference between those who leave a mark and those who are forgotten is the refusal to yield to discomfort, monotony, failure, distraction, or doubt. Those who dominate their field are those who act decisively every day when conditions are imperfect, when motivation is absent, when recognition is lacking. Because they understand that permanence is created not through easy days or visible victories, but through invisible, consistent, unstoppable action sustained over years. They understand that invincibility is earned, not given, and they operate as if surrender is impossible. When you combine unstoppable execution with obsession, momentum, and leverage, you create results that compound exponentially. You create skills that cannot be matched. You create influence that cannot be ignored. You create a presence in your field that defines standards, sets expectations, and establishes benchmarks. Because the foundation of invincibility is not talent. It is relentless practice, not charisma. It is repeated action, not luck. It is disciplined execution repeated over time. And that is why, when the world finally recognizes your impact, it will appear effortless. It will appear natural. It will appear inevitable. because it was built deliberately, invisibly, and relentlessly while others were distracted, discouraged, or hesitant. Legacy is the final measure of unstoppable execution, because it transforms effort into permanence. It converts skills into influence. It converts momentum into domination. It converts discipline into invincibility. It ensures that the work you do today echoes into tomorrow, that the results you produce compound and accumulate, and that the standards you establish define the field you operate in. It is the ultimate reward for those willing to endure invisibility, monotony, discomfort, failure, doubt, fatigue, and resistance. Because only those who persist beyond immediate gratification, long enough to compound effort into mastery, momentum into leverage, into unstoppable execution, can ever achieve invincibility or leave a lasting legacy. Chapter 10. Master your mind and life, until victory is inevitable. Victory is not won in a single battle. It is not achieved in a single day. It is built silently, invisibly, repeatedly through mastery of yourself, your mind, your focus, your actions, and your environment. The difference between those who dominate and those who drift through life is not luck or opportunity. It is the relentless command of their inner world. They act decisively because their mind is disciplined. They endure discomfort because their identity is unshakable. They leverage momentum because their focus is protected, and they pursue mastery relentlessly because their obsession is total. Life is not a spectator sport, and those who achieve ultimate victory understand that every moment of indecision, hesitation, distraction, or compromise is a loss that compounds over time. You must command your mind because your mind is the battlefield where victory is decided long before results appear externally. Your thoughts dictate your actions. Your beliefs dictate your effort. Your expectations dictate your resilience. If you allow doubt, fear, distraction, procrastination, laziness, or weakness to dominate your internal world, you will sabotage everything externally. Where motivation is irrelevant, where external validation is absent, because the mind that is trained to execute relentlessly even under pressure becomes unshakable and unstoppable. And that is the mind of a champion. Focus is the weapon that sharpens your mind and magnifies your effort. Without focus, all action is diluted, wasted, scattered, ineffective. The world will tempt you constantly with noise, distractions, half-hearted obligations, and shallow pursuits. It will attempt to scatter your attention and weaken your discipline. The difference between those who achieve ultimate victory and those who remain average is the ability to protect focus with surgical precision, to guard your attention against every unnecessary demand, and to direct every ounce of energy toward actions that generate the highest return, that amplify momentum, that compound skill, that create leverage, that accelerate results, and that build unstoppable execution. The more your focus becomes habitual, the less your results are dependent on emotion, motivation, or circumstance. Your life itself must be structured as an extension of this execution, because scattered environments, scattered relationships, scattered routines produce scattered results. You must design your life to minimize friction, to maximize output, to create systems that reinforce discipline, momentum, and leverage. Every day, every hour, Every minute your habits must align with your vision. Your environment must reinforce your standards. Your associations must elevate you. Your schedule must demand execution. And every element of your life must be intentional. Because victory is not accidental. It is engineered. And engineered through persistent control of yourself, your environment, and your focus. Obsession is the engine of this process. Because without total commitment, without deep engagement, without refusal to compromise, nothing will reach the level of inevitability. You must become obsessed not with temporary rewards, but with long-term mastery of skill, process, action, and identity. Obsession fuels endurance, fuels momentum, fuels execution, and fuels leverage. It is the relentless pressure that keeps you moving when no one notices, when results are delayed, when fatigue, doubt, and frustration threaten to overwhelm you. Obsession converts resistance into advantage. It converts pressure into power. It converts discomfort into fuel. It ensures that your actions continue to compound even when the world seems indifferent. And that compounding is what produces ultimate victory. Discipline is the foundation because without it, obsession burns out, momentum stalls, leverage fails, and execution collapses. Discipline ensures that you act when you do not feel like it, that you maintain focus when distraction calls, that you push past boredom, frustration, and monotony, that you honor your commitments to yourself even when no one else cares, that you refine your craft relentlessly even when progress is invisible, that you persist when failure seems permanent, and that you continue to invest in invisible work whose results will appear only years later. It is discipline that converts intention into action and action into results. It is discipline that transforms effort into inevitable victory. Momentum is the amplifier because action repeated consistently produces speed, efficiency, precision, and compounding force. The more momentum you maintain, the less effort is wasted, the less resistance exists, the more leverage can be applied, and the faster results accumulate. Without momentum, even obsession and discipline lose their edge. Action becomes slow, sporadic, inconsistent. Outcomes remain limited, and growth is constrained. Momentum converts repetition into exponential progress. It converts skill into dominance. It converts focus into impact. And when combined with leverage, it multiplies results far beyond what most people imagine possible. Leverage is the multiplier because effort without leverage is limited. Execution without leverage is linear. Repetition without leverage is ordinary. Only by applying your focus, skill, momentum, and obsession to the few actions that produce the highest return do you convert ordinary work into exponential results. Leverage is deliberate. It is strategic. It is intentional. It is ruthless. It requires you to prioritize ruthlessly, to remove distraction, to execute where impact is highest, and to multiply the effect of your actions. Because ultimate victory is achieved not by effort alone, but by applied, compounding effort, executed strategically and sustained relentlessly. Mastery of life, mastery of mind, mastery of focus, mastery of discipline, mastery of obsession, mastery of momentum and leverage produces a force that is unstoppable. Because when all these elements converge, your execution becomes inevitable, your results compound exponentially, your influence grows beyond control, your skills dominate your field, and your presence becomes unshakable. People may try to challenge you, circumstances may try to distract you, obstacles may try to block you, but once you have mastered these principles, victory is no longer uncertain. It is inevitable because the internal foundation is stronger than any external opposition. This is your call to action, your final choice, your moment to decide whether you will operate at the level of the average or whether you will dominate the extraordinary. Your life will follow the pattern of your mind. Your results will reflect the quality of your focus. Your legacy will be determined by the consistency of your execution. Your influence will compound in direct proportion to your obsession. Your success will scale with your discipline and momentum. Your invincibility will rise as you convert leverage into exponential results. And when all these forces combine fully, your victory will not be temporary. It will not be accidental. It will not be limited. It will be inevitable. The person you must become is relentless, disciplined, focused, obsessed, consistent, unstoppable, strategic, exponential, enduring, unshakable, invincible, and disciplined to act regardless of feeling, circumstance, or recognition. You must embody execution as identity. You must live momentum as habit. You must apply leverage with precision. You must cultivate obsession without compromise, and you must protect focus with ruthless intensity. When you do this, when you commit to this, when you refuse to negotiate with mediocrity or distraction or doubt, nothing can stop you, nothing can derail you. Nothing can compete with you, and every result you desire will become inevitable. Every goal you pursue will fall into alignment, and your legacy will be permanent because you have mastered the mind, mastered the process, mastered your life, and mastered victory itself. Victory is not a gift. It is a product of relentless, invisible, strategic, obsessive action repeated over years without pause, without compromise, without distraction, until momentum, leverage, discipline, and obsession converge into a force no one can resist and no one can stop. It is earned, it is built, it is commanded. And when you claim it fully, your life will never be the same, and your impact will echo far beyond the limits of imagination. Because ultimate victory is not something you chase, it is something you engineer from the inside out and sustain until nothing can compete with it.